Hey people, this is the book of the law when in love. And so I often say the King James Version or the King James religion, and people argue with me that King James didn't write that, and I totally understand that, but it's not the same book. In fact, under the British law, there's only two books that can keep their patent: Peter Pan and King James. And I'll leave the link to this video below. And this Chris Spargo, he'll tell you about the Peter Pan clause that only covers the King James Bible, the right to print and publish and distribute the King James Bible that was created in 1611. Is licensed by the Crown to the publishers. This allows them to reproduce under letters patent, which is a written order issued by the monarch. The royal family still owns the rights. Where all the other patents wear out in life plus 70 years, I think, in the UK, Peter Pan and the King James Bible is the only ones that don't. I've been keeping myself real busy this past year or so, and just got back to reading this past week. So I'm going to read y'all from Adam Names Animals in Genesis 2 from 18 to the finish where he creates woman and names her. And it's been a long time, so I might forget some of the secrets. One of the latest ones I figured out is when an A follows an L, it pronounces the N and not of. And anytime there's a double letter, the second one's a Y. And there's some more with the I and the A. I can't quite remember. It's been so long, but it'll come to me as I'm reading. And I just figured one out with this final M that looks more like a S. It's going to help make a lot more sense of this. But the original name of this, what they call the Holy Bible, is here what they call the Torah, which is just this four-letter here. These four letters is Torah, Torah, the Torah, which they say means the law, and they forget the rest of this part of the title. But this is a BKT, and it's where the word book comes from, and it means in cut. And cut is when they were writing on the wall in stone, you had to cut it in, and in cut. And the law in cut, in love, LV, in love, and WN when is. So it means, the law written when is in love. When is, AE is a ES. When is in love, or in love when is. During that time when you're in love. During that time, the connected cycle. Cycle is a part of time. When. And the AE as in ash, was the ancient Nordic god Ash, and an AE is pronounced as a AS or a ES is. And boon, in when is boon, and that's the word that they'll give the understanding, the ones that understand in the connected cycle, in when. Boon, the boonies, are the ones understanding in when is, knowing that time. The Torah, the law in cut, in written, in love when is. The law written when you're in love is the actual name of the Torah that they cut short. And then chapter 1, Genesis is what they'll say this is. They'll say this OSE is the base word of made, and the Bereshit here, they'll say this is created, and the SPR, they'll say that's the book. But this is a SPRM, the sperm as have raised it. R-A-S-I-T. The sperm as have raised it. And you see that here, in raise it, bear. So when I first started reading this, I used that old Torah because it was easier to recognize the letters and remember them because they were pictured more as the shapes, the tools that they meant. And it was easier to remember the meaning. And so I studied that for a while, and then I went to this new block style. And I compared the two of them many times, and I've always found them very accurate. It seems like the only difference I found is sometimes they'll take a line or maybe 10 or 15 off of one chapter's end and add them to the beginning of the next chapter. But most all the lettering is the same in them. So I like to read it here because they always give me some clues here, because this is way off. But the word names is usually, whatever's here, it's going to be in this writing. And the word names didn't come up till down here. And it's this L-A is the N-A or the N-O. Gnomes, names. Gnomes was the word in Egypt. And in Greek, the gnomes were the names of places. And it's the N-A-M-X, names. And it's the names as O-Z, as reckon, R-K-N-G-D-U, names as reckon do. And so the reason none of the words match up is because they never wanted you. That's the whole reason King James was written, because they didn't want the more ignorant people to learn how to read this when they had a public school system teaching people to read. This was the top secret book. So I learned from studying the Egyptian that the Egyptian, the gods and the secrets, they all read backwards. And there was a letter at the beginning of the names to let you know that this word reads backwards. And this is the God letter, the letter A. And this final M looks more like an S. And this is one of the first things I learned while reading the block style. And so I studied all the ancient letter charts, and this one helped the most, and I pulled it off and I use it most. But the Aleph, the A is the God letter. Power, decisiveness, teach, learn. And the reason I use it, somebody had drew this up with their cursor, but it almost resembles the old style lettering, that everything was a tool, and the tools had a meaning. But if you look at these final letters here, they're called soffits. And all they do is they drop the tail down. The K just sits that much taller, the tail dropped down. And it looks just like the K or the Kaf, except this tail dropped down. It makes the letter longer. And you see it on the end of the word. And it's just the final K. And the N, you'll see the same thing. The final none, they just drop the tail down. And the pay, the P, the same thing, they dropped it. And the final X is the same way. They just dropped the tail down on all these letters. This tail dropped. Except the final M is the only one that's different. They didn't drop the tail down on it. It just looks more like the S than the M here. You would think it was a final M. They would just drop this tail down. But they didn't. They formed it to look more like this S. And that's one of the first things I figured out when I was reading this block style. Is that final M is an S. But I was reading it wrong, and I just figured out how it's read. It's the M here when it's the final letter. But when the word read backwards, it starts with an A, and this word reads backwards. It turns into the S. And now it's at the beginning. And so this isn't a S-I-E-I-M. This is a S-I-E, and the L followed by the A makes it an N. It's a scene, S-I-E-N. And so in the oldest language, this was the Chinese word for the immortal God. And it's large, it's used in many languages. Usually you'll see it in the Middle English, it'd be right, but it's seen as sight, and the scenery, scene, and it's also seen as mind, what you see in your mind, what's not seen. And this word's also used for non-binary, his or her. In German is an accusative of a seer, which is a non-binary, unspecified gender. 100 in Spanish, which was written with that double I-N in Hebrew. And things like this give me a clue, that when I see a double I, the first one's an I and the second one's an E. And that's why I learned this just studying words, old language. But also in Spanish, it's the mind. In Swedish, mind. Norwegian. When I catch a word that means the same thing in many languages, I kind of stick with that, meaning and touch in Dutch, German, mind, Norwegian, mind, Swedish, mind, and still with a Hebrew spelling. And in anatomy, it's the temple, part of the skull, and the mind. And in Middle Dutch, it was to see, with descendants of several languages. Or in Old Dutch, it's where sane comes from, to filter, to seep, to sane it out, as in drip coffee. And in Middle English, alternative form of seen, to say, declare, speech. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in Old English is appearance, sight, face, countenance, vision, sight, scenery, what's being seen, power of sight or vision. When somebody's trying to visualize something, you see them put their fingers on their temples and concentrate, looking for a vision, a scene. And with the nominative, the accusative, genitive, and dative, you see the spelling is all closer. This Elohim, Elohim, A-L-E-I-M. And so that's why they say that Elohim is plural gods, the scenes. That's the first thing they say if you run your cursor up here, plural. Rulers, judges, divine ones, angels, gods, God, goddess, it's he or she, non-binary. Also fitting in with the Chinese language, the gods, the supreme gods. So when we read this, the AMR, that's the base word for the word and said, and they'll give it all kind of things around there. And it's where your word grammar comes from. This is the AMR in grammar. And the Y, meaning how or who, and who word, how word. How word you the scene. And on, A-N, followed by the A as in. On, at, of, high, what. On high, what. And to make word, to make. Why, word, you, the scene, on it of high, what. That was the ancient readings, went on high. They're talking about the sky gods, the stars. Same book. And yammer you, the scene, on it of high, what had live, do. Live, do, live through. Lived, LVD. And had live to the soul, S-O-A-L. The soul was reckoned, and the DU is like to, through, connected. is reckon through. And reckon is to do the math, to add it up in your head or on the calculator to figure, reckoning. Why yammer you the scene on it of high what had 'em? What's up high in the stars? What had 'em? And that's the animals. The animals, they'll say that, them heathen Egyptians, the animals were their gods. The plants were their gods. It's the same thing. Same thing in the old Hebrew religion, they'll call it. Hebrew, you find it in Isaiah 47, I think it is. The only time you find the word Hebrew in the Bible, they say it means astrologer. That's what that means. And why the word you the scene on it of high what had 'em live through or live to the soul was reckoned to. Everything that lives, your soul is reckoned by the stars. Astrology. The soul. SOALWOZ. The soul was reckoned to. Why cry who? Who cry who? The crier is the one that looked at the stars and cried, it's 9 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock. Lights out. All is good. The crier. XR. And it's also the Chiro. That was the Catholic Church. You'll see that the base word is enemy. Sometimes in the same column as Satan. Why cry who the scene? The scene need me. And from NEAD. Need me. Out of the ground. Where was man made from? It was made out of the ground. You need me. You need me. And clutch it the side. What side do you clutch it? Where's your pencil? It's in your right hand. If you're writing with a hammer and chisel, your chisel's probably in your left, but the hammer's in your right hand. And clutch it the side. What call of Fessin. F-E-S. And an M-I-M is the spelling of the letter N in Egypt. Mem. And it meant one waters. And it's in. The waters is what you go in. And the fess, to tell up in, is to tell off. And every bird of the air, all your old ancient religious leaders, they all got their clues from the birds. Every bird of the air, the call of Fessin. The birds are telling off. Why cry who them sign need me? The clutch it, to grab a hold the side what call of Fessin. And why? And the next word, starting with the A, so it's reading backwards. To the wive on. You see, this is the same word they'll say gives father backwards. When it starts with A, you read it the same. It's a wife. And the wife on, and then the A-E is E-S. The wife on is Adam. To rot. Rot, as in W-R-O-G-H-T, to shape. To rot me. A fur. And a fur all. A-L. A fur all, and a double vav is Y. W-Y, meaning how or who. Who color, backwards, starts with the A. The colors. And that's how you classify people. Hey, they're black, they're white, they're yellow, they're brown. And that's when you first... They're to cull, to select something, it's the KL, the selection of what you see is the colors and all who color so a fur, so called all we Adam, ADM and ATM, add them and Adam to the list. All we Adam and nups, your prenups before you wedding to wed together. You'll see that in thou shalt not sleep with your neighbor's wife. It's nups. And all we had them married, married the time with the place. The nups and she. This is like chi, the living spirit, your third chakra. The spiraling nexus points that hubs and store and calculate life force energy, the chi, throughout the body. And the double E here, is EY, they, and marries the life force energy, the chi, they, wasm too. WASM2. They wasm too. Marry the name, marry the life force energy into to the scene on at of high what. Marry that life force energy to its sign in the stars. And yammer you the sign on it of high what hadum live to, the soul was reckoned to. Connect the life force energy to the sign in the skies. The book's about astrology. Who cry, who the sign am, need me. Clutch it the side, what call of fessin, wive on. Is Adam to rot? Is Adam to shape me a fur to call all who the color so a fur all we had 'em nups to marry up the life force energy they was 'em too. Connect the life force energy to the sign in the stars, what it says. And affers, the A, E here is the ES. And affers, Adam, same what? The names are the same that you're reading from the signs in the sky. The same what to cleave 'em, KLEVE, to cleave me. All the livestock, I cut it up in steaks. The same what to cleave me, will of fessin, will clutch it the side, will Adam names, NAMX, the names so, not was found, will Adam the names so as reckoned to. So, if I want to send you to another doctor, I'll give you a referral. I'll refer you to another doctor. I'll give you his name, and you could go call on him, an referral. And the names here, it's where the word similar comes from. It's not necessarily the name. It means, you're similar to the lion. You're similar to the group of stars in this sign, the same what. And so you can see it, and affers Adam came after the afferal. The afferal we Adam, and the afferal who color so. So I think that the time that I took off from reading, I've been reading hardly any in the year. I've been real busy taking care of a lot of things, and it helped to clear my mind a lot. And when I come back, this grabbed me real quick, that it's the S when it begins. And so I went back and read from the beginning to put this together, and I caught a lot more. And so, the 10 plus years, maybe 13 plus years I've been doing this, I don't remember. It's a record. If you look at my channel, it's a record of me learning this. And what you're seeing now is many years of me and what I've learned. And so if you look at my previous movies, they're not going to be accurate. It's a learning process. And I wish I could do this in front of a live audience to check me when I say something and I go back on it. And it would help us learn quicker. But we'd have to put together a church to do that. And we can't get that many smart people all in one area. We live all across the world. And I don't have the temperament for it. If Don Lemon come in there and run his mouth, I'd beat him down like the bitch he is. I got no respect for none of the religions going on today, but I got better sense than to go up in their church and question their integrity, because I know they don't have sense enough. They're just a bunch of followers. None of them can read the ancient books. They just believe what they're told. And this one of my favorites, Maudie Speaks. She's a Nigerian, been living in England, and you'd think she's prejudiced against black people. She don't like what they're doing, and she feels, their idiocy reflects on her color. But I don't have any problem with the Christian values. I like that. And you see most of the people that I follow, I don't always watch their movies, but I like to look at their headlines. And they're mostly the Christian values. And these values didn't come out of the Bible. They came out of the King James Bible that was totally written just because they didn't want these people to know how to read the ancient writings of astrology. But, the Christians, they kind of got it split up. You're either black or white. You're good or bad. You're a Christian or Muslim or atheist. There's more sides to it. And their black or their white side ain't always right. But, they're just followers. They're too lazy to try to read. But it plainly says the existing one is plural and non-binary. I'm going to cut this off here. Good day.